My name is Ghostboy259, and I race down the hills of
Slopecrashers!
While it wasn't among the first videos I ever uploaded on my main channel, the second video I actually wrote was a tribute to my favorite childhood game, Snowboard Kids. And while it hasn't been a tremendously popular video, it still gets views from time to time, and the comments on it are some of my favorite, because it's filled with people who, like me, have a large attachment to the series from when they were younger, and are either there to dip into some nostalgia, or secretly hope that one day we'll have a new addition to the franchise. Sadly, it seems like that's a door that will never open, and while there's been some fan projects made and a little bit of hope that maybe one day it will appear on the Switch, I think it's safe to say that the franchise is dead, and there's really no point in wasting the energy hoping for more. Still, it's a magic that many have sought to recreate because it's not just racing, it's also tricks and fun characters and getting to snowboard in places with no snow. It's incredible music and really fun level design for a racing game, and an atmosphere that I have yet to see replicated in the racing genre. I think it's one of the biggest reasons I stay away from racing games, just nothing can compare. Slopecrashers, while not directly advertising itself as a spiritual successor to Snowboard Kids, is certainly heavily inspired, whether it be from the voices yelling the name of the game on the menu, the music, or even a lot of the level design. Make no mistake, this is a game made by a Snowboard Kids fan. And I do like it, but I don't love it. It's not a game I have a ton of desire to keep playing, and I will openly admit, maybe it's really good and it's just me who totally didn't love it. If you want to watch me experience the game for the first time, you can head to youtube.com/realityescapeplays or check out the description. You can always catch highlights of me playing games before I cover them over on this channel, just in case you want an authentic first impression. Now, I'm always pretty cautious when I engage in game criticism. I try not to just entirely tear down a game, and I don't think this game is a 0 out of 10 by any means. I mostly like most of it. But I do want to acknowledge that the developer is one single person who has clearly been working on this for years, and it's a labor of love. It took 6 years to create what you see, and while I'd like to talk about the things I didn't like about the game, which may seem like the majority of my talking points, I want to make it clear that I did enjoy the game quite a bit. It just feels like a game I won't be going back to anytime soon because of a few different reasons. First off, as you can probably tell by looking at the screen, I had some performance issues. My streaming PC isn't the most modern or up-to-date, but even when playing the game on my editing rig, which I just upgraded a little bit before playing, the menu screen with nothing else open used 100% of my GPU. I had to turn down all the settings, but on my stream computer, there was nothing I could do. Even at minimal settings, the game was lagging like crazy. There are some maps where the water is extremely detailed, even though in other maps the water is not extremely detailed, and there's some parts where there's falling snow or there's leaves flying at the screen, and there's no way to shut these off, and the game would just not at all run smoothly at all during these moments. I will say the lag you're seeing is a little bit of stream. It's not that bad while playing, but it was definitely still bad, just like 10% not as bad as what you're seeing. I've also recorded some footage off stream on my editing PC with all the graphics turned way low, so not all the footage is super choppy. It could very well be the requirements are a little bit higher than listed, but that was obviously a big hindrance in me enjoying the game, is that I couldn't get it to run smoothly. I tend not to talk about graphics or optimization too much because I just don't really know what I'm doing in that regard. I'm not really a big tech guy. I just use the things once they've been built. So I 100% accept that this could just be a me problem. Maybe I'm doing something wrong or something is going on. I tried running without OBS. It kind of gave me the same result. I didn't see anyone else reporting the issue on Steam reviews, so it could just be me, and if it is just me, then I totally accept the blame. It could be 100% my fault, and if anyone knows a fix for this, please let me know. On to the gameplay. The racing feels pretty good once you get a hang of it. Jumping and doing tricks is a very important part of the game, and you also have a boost that fills up as you do tricks. You become pretty reliant on this, so at any given opportunity, you need to be doing tricks to get boost. I'm generally not a huge fan of games where you have a boost. Like most racing games, I prefer a boost to be either an item or a boost pad on the ground, and this game actually has all three. The boost meter is filled by doing tricks, and since items don't cost any money, there's literally no incentive to do tricks in a normal race without the boost being there. So in that case, it does make sense. It was well thought out. The game is obviously very proud of how they did the tricks, and so they push it heavily. They wanted to make sure that people used it, and you definitely have to. The boost also doesn't seem to work in the air, which feels very strange to me. I'm guessing this was also a conscious decision because you're in the air so often and they don't want you doing tricks and then getting a full boost bar, blasting off, doing more tricks, and then infinitely staying in the air. But it is a little odd to see rockets flying out of my board and not seeing any boost in speed. It was very instinctive for me to do this, and it took a while to get rid of that muscle memory. There's also a trick safety setting, basically making it so you'll always land your tricks. I'm not a huge fan of this because I feel like landing tricks and learning how to do it is such a fundamental part of these games, and I think that's kind of what makes it fun, is this risk of can I take a little bit more time to do a trick or not, but also I get it. I preach accessibility in almost all of my videos, and if there's young kids out there who love the aesthetic of this game, and why wouldn't they might have a hard time landing tricks, so why not keep it fun for everyone? I do wonder how this affects online races though. The items are packaged in boxes very similar to that of Snowboard Kids, and they pretty much work the same way. Red is some sort of projectile that you launch at someone, blue is either a boost or it slows someone else down. Unlike the Snowboard Kids games where you get a red box and blue box and you can use them as you please, in this one you have to use whatever you get in the order you get it in. It's a weird choice. I do wonder if it was done this way just so they could say, well, see, it's not exactly the same as Snowboard Kids. Or maybe it was very intentional just because it wanted to make the game a little bit harder, but the boxes are already so similar that I do wonder why not just go all the way and use the same system. The items are fine, nothing super original save for one or two, but it's also kind of hard to be super original when Diddy Kong Racing and Mario Kart kind of wrote the book on this. The coolest one, my favorite, is probably the big ice dome that freezes people near you. Unfortunately, you're hardly ever around people for it to actually get use, but I think it's pretty cool. I think my biggest issue with the items, and maybe this is just me, maybe I'm just bad at the game, or maybe this isn't happening and it just feels like it was happening, is that most of the items tend to hone in on you even if you're in the air. Like I said, they might not, and maybe it's just my mind thinking that because I had a lot of opportunities to dodge attacks and I feel like every time I got hit. Snowboard Kids has a light honing in, so if you shot in the general vicinity, you would hit your guy, and if you had an attack coming your way, you could jump over it, or if you were skilled enough, you could deflect it back. That doesn't seem to be possible in this one. I got hit in midair quite a few times, and if they are honing, which I think they are, you can't jump to avoid them because they'll just hone up and hit you. So ultimately, unless you have an item that protects you, I think you just have to get hit, or maybe boost your way out and then boost and do a crazy jump where it can't follow you. Again, maybe it doesn't hone in and it just seemed like every single time I got hit, it felt like it was. I'm not trying to be the toxic gamer like, oh, the game honed or something. I very well admit I could just be awful at this game. When you get hit though, this is my least favorite aspect of this game. You don't just pick yourself up, you respawn. When I first played the demo, I was kind of baffled at the decision to have respawning instead of picking yourself up. I thought the more I played, the more I would get used to it, but truthfully, I just never did. The respawning just feels weird in such a linear game where all I want to do is keep going forward. If you have low speed and fall off a cliff, you can get your speed back pretty much instantly. Sometimes where you spawn will actually be ahead of where you died, so you can die in 4th place and then respawn in 2nd. If I had to guess, I would guess there are respawn points set throughout the maps, and whichever you're closer to, you just go to. I also had a couple of points where I got stuck in negative respawn loops where I would keep dying and going backwards, and if that happens, your race is pretty much over. It's an odd choice to me, and ultimately I suppose it comes down to preference. Obviously there needs to be some sort of respawn mechanic if you fall off the map, but respawning every time I take a hit just takes me out of the game, especially when you don't respawn where you were hit. But it takes a second to reorient myself every single time, and it's a very fast game, so it's so jarring to me. All I want to do is keep moving forward, and if I get hit, I have to figure out where forward is again for half a second, and I don't want to have to keep doing that every time. I might be in the minority here. I don't play a lot of racing games, so it's possible no one else had these issues. I just can't think of another racing game that I've played in the past where you respawn after every hit. Sometimes there's like a crash tag team thing where you just absolutely completely explode, but for the most part, I think games just allow you to pick yourself up and keep going. Unfortunately, this just made the game very difficult for me to keep playing. In terms of map design, the maps and racetracks are ginormous. I think there are 7 in total, and some have up to 4 different pathways you can take, so they get some reuse. I don't mind them. There's a good mix of snow and not snow ones. There's a cool pirate themed one, and a city, and a forest, and I think they all look fantastic. They are all massive, and I don't just mean in the sense of how long they are, which they are. Some races take upwards of like 8 minutes to do, which is kind of exhausting. The map themselves are very open, and there are always multiple ways to actually proceed forward. So much so that sometimes you won't even see other racers for like 2 minutes at a time because everyone is going a different way. Snowboard Kids and Mario Kart maps were pretty condensed. Mind you, Snowboard Kids only had 3 other racers on the track and was made on the N64, but here it feels so open that it can actually kind of get overwhelming at some points, especially when it feels like there's a dozen different directions you can go. You occasionally find these gates, and the game will tell you how many gates there are on that version of the map, and a majority of them have like 25 of these gates, which I can't imagine trying to go through intentionally and finding them all. It just seems so exhausting, and when the map is so long and so much of it blends in with each other, it never became a game for me where on a second lap or even a second playthrough, I was going, oh right, and then there's this turn coming up, or oh right, then there's this part. I think the city, when you go inside the mall, is the only part of the game that I was like, oh right, this is familiar. Honestly, while playing this game, if the second lap switched to a completely different map and you didn't tell me, I probably wouldn't have noticed because there's just so much going on. I kind of wish it just had a little bit more repetitiveness in it, maybe smaller maps, more laps, just because I feel like getting familiar with the tracks so you can do better the next time is kind of part of the fun with these games. The tricks and jumps work really well with how large the maps are, but I still think you could reasonably condense everything by maybe 25% and come up with something just as fun. It's also possible maybe I just didn't play long enough. I'm pretty sure I did one map like 10 times though, and I never felt familiar to me. As I said, sometimes the maps take like 5 minutes. It is a bit long and tiring, and there's not a lot of races that go shorter than that. It's not like it's a variety, they're all like that. To their credit, like I said, it works super well with the gameplay. You can go off any kind of wall like a ramp, and you can do tons of tricks in the air and fly around. You can also hold A to glide, which does slow you down but can help you make some saves or just figure out where the heck you're gonna go or what you're trying to do. Sometimes maps have skips where you can skip whole sections if you're able to spot it out and make it, and sometimes maps have what looked like very obvious skips but with death planes, so there's not a ton of consistency as to what you can and can't skip. You just have to experiment and see where the respawn takes you. I'm sure if there's any speedrunners for this game, they will have no problem finding things with just a little bit of patience. I think given the size of the maps, having 3 to 4 different tracks within each map works really well. But sometimes the variations are just half of the full map, or they just contain one section, so sometimes even the different variations you still end up doing the same parts. I do wonder if the effort would have been better giving more individual maps instead of just repurposing the few you have, but I also think that this could be a really cool opportunity to keep adding maps to this game. Just imagine how hyped that would be playing a racing game, then every 3 to 4 months a new map drops, and then you can do that 4 different times. One thing I can say for sure is I've never experienced such an open map design for a racing game, and while it's not my cup of tea all of the time, some of the time it is, I can definitely see some people really loving this. It complements the tricks and gliding mechanics well. I'm not sure the game would have worked as well with slightly smaller, slimmer maps, but I do think sometimes the maps are so open that it's to the game's detriment. Like this part here, I talked about how sometimes there are death planes you can't really see. There's no indication of a death plane here, and it sucks that I have to experiment to find that out and then hope to remember that in 4 minutes again. I also encountered some parts where I or NPCs just got stuck and there was zero way out, but that's also just bound to happen with a map design this big, and poor little penguin, he never recovered. So, in my opinion, for a racing game to achieve longevity or immortality, you need something besides racing. I mean, if you're doing online racing with a lot of friends, then that's always fun. You just keep racing with your friends, but if you're not doing that, then what is the purpose to race? What can you do in this game? Well, there's a few different modes of gameplay here. Training is just that. It trains you how to play, but if you select training, you have to start from the beginning of basics, tricks, and abilities. You can't just start a selection you need help with. So if I'm missing out on a game mechanic entirely, it's because I never finished training. Arcade is just playing the game through, choose your map, choose your track, and then choose what you want to do on that track. You don't have to unlock any of the maps, which is kind of nice, although I kind of wish you did just to have a little bit more to do. You can race, you can do a time attack, which is like a race but with no one else there. You can do a stunt show, which is getting the most points and getting to the end within a certain time limit. There's, I don't know how to say this, slalom, I don't know how to say that, but it's that thing where you have to pass through the gates in alternating colors. There's boss battle where there's a giant snowman and you need to destroy him, much like in Snowboard Kids 2, but of course the maps are so big, you have plenty of time to get this snowboard man. Don't worry about it, you're gonna get him. There's target takedown where you have to shoot snowmen on the track, and finally boost collector, which is just collecting as many boosts as you can. Campaign is basically an amalgamation of all of these modes. You like how I can't say slalom, but I can say amalgamation first try? Race this map, do the most tricks on this map, do a boss battle on this map. There's one that's like race, but with no items, which is just very odd. I don't know why you would do this. This isn't even an option in the default arcade mode unless you go to items and switch it off, and I don't know why you would. That's kind of, the fun part of these games. Without it, you kind of just feel like you're snowboarding passively around and other people are just kind of there in the way. Each campaign stage has 4 mini objectives, things like finish in the top 3, or glide for 20 seconds, or rail grind for 15 seconds, or do a 20 move combo, or use 10 items. These give you checks, which give you coins, which you can use to unlock new boards or gliding utensils, and eventually other challenges. There's 6 campaign levels in total, and they unlock gradually as you play. There's also 8 characters, but you only start with 4, so I assume this is how you unlock everything. And there's 3 difficulty settings: casual, normal, and too fast. I played on normal and casual, and honestly, I didn't notice a huge difference. There's also not 3 campaigns for each difficulty, so if you complete something on casual or too fast, you've completed it regardless. Which I guess in terms of running out of rewards, it makes sense, but it makes it harder to go back and play the harder version if you want to after beating the easier version, because you will have no reward for it. Maybe just have casual and normal already unlocked and make it so that when you complete normal, that unlocks the too fast difficulty, just so there's some more incentive to actually do the campaign a second time with more challenging difficulties. The last game setting is the Grand Prix, of which there is 8 in total. The Grand Prix is something that we've seen in a ton of Mario Kart games, although the main difference is that those games often have dozens of maps, especially the newer games which import maps from the old one, and I get that this game does not have the luxury of doing that, but this game only has 7 maps. As a result, instead of the Grand Prix being races in bundles of 4 or even 3, it's just 2 races back to back. I thought I had quit the Grand Prix by accident, or that I had lost because I didn't finish high enough so it kicked me out because I had no chance of winning. But no, it's just 2 races, and that's a Grand Prix. Most of the decisions in this game, I can explain to myself why they did things a certain way. This one, I can't fathom it even remotely. At least just make 4 Grand Prix and they each have 4 races, so it feels like it's building up to something, but 2 races just feels underwhelming and disappointing. It's basically over before it starts. After all the campaigns and the Grand Prix, you're basically left with customization, which is awesome. It's the one thing that Snowboard Kids really lacked. You had costumes, but you couldn't customize anything besides the design of your board. And I think in general, more racing games need you to have more funny outfits and costumes because it's just fun. Why not? There is a ton of customizations. They're bought with these little diamonds you collect on the maps, and every character in board has customization options, along with needing them to level up to get even more. This means if you intend to unlock everything for every character, eventually you're going to run out of things to do, and you'll be playing the same maps over and over again. But while I'm not going to do it, I don't mind it. For people who love the game, they're going to love it. It just feels a little bit too grindy for me considering how few maps there are, but with all the work you have to do in campaign, maybe it evens out as long as you're constantly switching out your character. Now, I want to just re-clarify, because we've been talking about this game for a little bit now. It may sound like I don't like this game, but I do, and I admit I unfairly compare it to Snowboard Kids way too much, but it's hard. I've been playing Snowboard Kids for 25 years, and honestly, if this game didn't have so many odes to Snowboard Kids, I wouldn't make the comparison. I would just say it's a snowboarding game. And I do think it is a really good modern alternative to the game. The magic of Snowboard Kids would be impossible to match just purely off a nostalgic factor alone, but what has been created here is actually a very good standalone snowboard games. Besides the issues I had running the game smoothly, which again I totally admit could have just been on my end, it's just the little things that add up for me as to why I don't see myself playing this as often. I really like the trick system, I like flying around, I think the character customization is really funny, and as much as I don't see myself grinding out the campaign, I like that there's multiple things to do and ways to unlock things. Since I first played the game and up to the point of writing the script, I basically played one race every day or so, and I think that's pretty much where I'm done with this game, unless an online community suddenly opens up for this, because I'd love to try multiplayer. Unfortunately, the game didn't really come crazy out of the gates, and it's a little too pricey for me to recommend to people, but if the game ever goes on sale, I might recommend this to some friends and maybe we'll race around, because I think that would be kind of fun. But otherwise, I think I'm just going to get bored of doing the same 5-minute lap back to back several times just to unlock a scarf or a hat. As I stated in the beginning, I'm hesitant to be so overly critical of Slopecrashers because the game has so much love in it. You can tell this is a love letter to the snowboarding games of old, and that it's something the dev is really passionate about. And while I'm not personally a fan of a lot of the choices that were made, there are tons of people who disagree with me, and that's great, because I'd like to see this game be a foundation of something cool. Maybe something else to build upon. I would love to see this continually updated with new maps and maybe new campaigns or game types. Or maybe the second game is also a racing game and it's even better than this one, and this is a cool little piece of what is going to be a bigger thing. To be completely honest with you though, a part of me wonders if there was no respawning, and just a simple pickup after you get hit if I would like this game a ton more. I'm not saying that to sound petty, but sometimes you just can't help how you feel about things. Racing games are peculiar, and if you don't feel like you have total control over the thing that you're racing, that can be a deal breaker, as it has been for many games in the past. But alas, the choices that were made in this game weren't mine to make, and this game shouldn't just be Snowboard Kids. It should be how the dev wanted it to be made. And I'm sure everything I've talked about was considered and chosen for reasons that perhaps I didn't even consider. Look, it's not my favorite snowboarding game, I didn't expect it to be, but I did like it far more than I expected, and I'm curious to see where things go from here. The game seems mostly underground right now, with, at the time of recording this, the all-time peak of concurrent players was right after release with 32, and since then it's only gotten above 12 once. As fun and compelling as multiplayer might be, almost no one has gotten to try it, and unless the game blows up in the future, the funnest part of the game may never get a chance to be experienced. As much as it's not my thing, it really resonated with a lot of other people. There are tons of positive comments and reviews, and it's not filling any void for me, but I didn't expect it to. But for now, my name is Ghostboy259, and I played Slopecrashers. And next time, I'll play something else. Thanks for watching.